Resident Evil Retribution.
So Resident Evil Retribution tells the story of Alice banding together with another group of survivors to escape an underground Umbrella compound. Welcome back to the Resident Evil review series, everybody, and now we are at Chapter 5, Resident Evil Retribution. We got one more movie, and tomorrow I'm also going to be seeing Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City for the first time, and that review will be out Wednesday morning. So, very excited that my wait to watch the new film is coming to an end, but unfortunately now we are diving into the 2 installments of the previous Resident Evil franchise that I am really not a fan of. And the funny thing about Resident Evil Retribution is that most of the issues that I have with it that I'm going to be getting into in this video, you could probably apply to any of the other movies, and I really couldn't argue with you that much. Just for whatever reason, those movies, despite fully acknowledging their flaws, I still get enjoyment value out of them. And though I don't hate this movie, this is the first one of all of these movies that I watched and just didn't really care to ever watch again. This is actually my second watch ever in preparation for this review series. The first time I waited months until after this thing came out on video, watched it, got nothing out of it, and kind of just lost my interest completely with the Resident Evil franchise because of this movie. But getting into the positives of Resident Evil Retribution, I do like the whole setting and the concept of this underground Umbrella section of biomes to where they have like their own biome for Moscow, Russia, they've got one for Tokyo, Japan, they've got one for Suburban America, and to me it made sci-fi sense to have these different settings for testing grounds to not only test the different bioweapons that they have, but also to utilize like footage and the information they get out of this to create bidding wars for this. I think that that would make somewhat grounded sense, and sci-fi does work best when it has some tether to reality. So that was a cool story direction for me, but also I like the different settings. I like that it changes up the visuals throughout the movie, where you get a little bit of suburban America where they're taking on zombies in a random neighborhood. You get that Tokyo setting that we got a little bit of at the beginning of Afterlife that was a very cool sequence, and this is kind of a more extended version of that. There's a whole shootout with a bunch of almost Nazi zombies kind of look with Moscow, Russia, and all of the other survivors that are trying to meet Alice. So for what it is, that concept to make this movie have different settings and to have kind of a driving force for why they're in this underground section of Umbrella, but also to give them motivation to get out and destroy it, I thought it was pretty interesting. Of all of the new and, quite honestly, the returning characters that we get in this movie, I do like Barry Burton. I do like the performance that we get here, and I do like the character himself. It's not 100% in line with the character's personality from the video games, but then again, none of these are. But as a presence in the movie, I think that he's fun. He kind of has that cowboy, wild, like gunslinger type of vibe to him, to where he just goes at it for the fun. There's even a segment where he's like, no, you go do the objective. I'm having fun just shooting these motherfuckers right here.
Someone's got to stay here, Leon. Besides, I'm kind of enjoying myself!
And even the way that he sacrifices himself towards the end of the movie, I thought was pretty cool and in character for him. So he's the one side character in this movie that I mildly enjoy. I also liked the segment in the opening act of this movie where you get Alice as like a housewife, you've got Carlos as her husband, they have this hearing impaired child, because it's the only segment in the entire franchise that feels like a traditional zombie movie. It's just a suburban couple with their daughter when a zombie comes into their house, and it's very reminiscent of the opening of the Dawn of the Dead remake, which is probably blatant. I mean, there's tons of moments throughout this franchise where they just rip from things left and right, so would not be surprised if that was the direct inspiration for it. But not being a giant over-the-top sci-fi action scene, but just having classic zombie horror, I think makes that segment stand out a bit with this franchise. And unfortunately, that's about all I've got for positives. I rewatched this film and kind of went in with a blank slate, thinking that maybe after binging all 4 of these movies over the past week or so, that putting this 5th chapter in might lessen the blow a little bit and I might actually enjoy it. I really didn't. The main problem with this movie to me is that it makes all of the same errors that I have bitched about for the past couple of movies, but it does it so much more egregiously and it's so much more prominent in the movie, the level of those problems. Once again, the story here, complete stepping stone chapter, which is now 3 movies in a row to where the only plot that they give us is quickly wrapping up something that they ended the last movie with in an unsatisfying way, and setting up something cool that they're inevitably going to do the same fucking thing in the next movie. And spoiler alert, they totally do that. That whole segment at the end of Resident Evil Afterlife where she lets out all these survivors and there's this huge army that's going to help Alice and help Claire and help Chris Redfield defeat Umbrella, and all of a sudden all these Umbrella carriers are coming to this ship and we end the movie. Holy shit, that's gonna be crazy. What happens? In not 1, but 2 scenes that open up this movie, they obliterate every single person with the exception of Alice in minutes, and then just reset the stage and go, whatever, who cares what the fuck we wrote in that movie, we're gonna do something totally different here. And that makes no sense since every single one of these movies is written by the same fucking person. This movie was directed by the person that directed the previous movie. Paul W.S. Anderson didn't direct every movie in this franchise, but this is a part 2 of his little finale trilogy. So the fact that he keeps doing this thing where he introduces something that sounds cool for a setup for another movie and then he just wipes the fucking slate clean within minutes, it's infuriating at this point. And the way that they do it is so dumb, where you have this like reverse slow-mo replay of what's going to happen in the opening of the movie while the credits play that shows us every single thing that's about to happen. Everybody dies. Jill has this little thing where she rappels out of the helicopter. Alice is blown off of the carrier into the water. And then they have the whole thing play again in real time going forward, as if they didn't just show us the entire fucking sequence just a minute ago. And I will hold my my rant for this when I talk about the final film, the final chapter, but they do the same thing as far as setting up something cool at the end of this movie where you have Wesker and Jill and Alice and Leon and Ada looking over on the roof of what used to be the White House to just armies of the undead and armies of Umbrella bioweapons, setting up like the final chapter is going to be this fucking epic ass fight with all of the surviving characters against all the different Resident Evil monsters, and that is not at all what we get in the final chapter. So stay tuned for that bitching. And unfortunately, you get a whole handful of characters in here that are pulled out of the games and have no resemblance whatsoever to the characters they're supposed to be portraying. They look like the characters. They actually look pretty damn good as recreations of those characters, but that's where it ends. They are characters in name only. From Ada to Leon, I like Barry, but even Barry, and this one especially hurts me because I've said before, I'm a gigantic fan. I'm a fanatic of Resident Evil 4. That was my first Resident Evil game. That's the game that I have beaten the most times. I would say that's probably my second favorite video game of all time behind the original Metal Gear Solid. So fucking up Leon and fucking up Ada that's intolerable for me. Other characters, even Chris, that was hard, but I like Wentworth Miller, so it wasn't too hard. This one, like Leon especially, just has no personality. This guy cannot act. The line delivery here is so bad to where Alice is telling him she's gonna do something and he's just like, that is a mistake. And then she responds and he's like, I don't think we should do this. And it's just like, dude, fucking pull some personality out of you, please. And besides the haircut, he doesn't look like Leon at all. He's middle-aged, and he doesn't have any of that boyish charm, any of that baby face that's part of the personality of Leon. Like, all you guys that have been bitching for months now since they casted the Leon in Welcome to Raccoon City that we're about to get, saying, oh, it's the worst thing ever, he doesn't look like Leon. Well, I will withhold my judgment until I see the film, but hopefully he at least acts like Leon, because I'll take somebody that acts like Leon over somebody that just got the fucking haircut right. And all of these characters aren't really given anything to do. Like, Ada teams up with Alice for a little bit, but she doesn't really feel all that significant next to Alice, who yet again just steals the spotlight from everybody. And then you get Leon and Luther returning and Barry Burton and a couple of red shirts that come in, and they're just basically shooting zombies for half the movie until they team up with Alice, and then by the end of the movie they're kind of deemed irrelevant anyway because we're not going to fucking see them in the next movie, despite what the ending of this movie might make you think. And they even take it a step further with bringing back returning important characters from the movie franchise. You get Michelle Rodriguez back as Rain, you get Oded Fehr back as Carlos, if you want to consider Luther a return because he was presumed dead and then he showed up for 2 seconds at the end of Afterlife and now he's back to do absolutely nothing except shoot things and then die. They bring all these characters back to have somewhat of an important return for either the story or for the character of Alice, and they don't do jack shit with any of them. Carlos literally returns just to shoot at Alice and die in a flood. Luther comes back just to shoot at zombies and then get his fucking heart stopped with a little palm move from Rain. Rain comes back in probably the most significant way where there's like an evil version and a good version, which doesn't really completely make sense, but they have her watch over the Newt ripoff, and then they have her fight Alice for a moment, inject herself with the Las Plagas, which is the only explanation we get for what the hell the Las Plagas is in the movie franchise, and just to be drowned. Like, why are you bringing back characters to try to have something significant with them just to do the most insignificant thing possible with them? Like, give that screen time to some of the fucking characters that you're trying to bring in from the video games that we have been waiting for. What are you doing? And even the character of Alice, I don't really get much from her in this movie. And if you have not seen my previous reviews, I kind of like the character of Alice. I don't like the fact that she steals the spotlight, but for what the movie franchise is trying to do, which is prop her character up and give her all of the spotlight, she is a capable action heroine. She's a capable protagonist for the story that they're telling, so I have liked her thus far. In this movie, all of her lines feel like trailer lines, even the way that she delivers them, where you get the little 2 axe men, it's like, do you know what that is? I got a feeling I do, or whatever the fuck she says. Everything is like this moment where it's like, show this in the trailer, guys.
You know what it is?
I have an idea.
But unfortunately, even the only story that we get, the only bit of an arc that we get with her character for this chapter is a complete blatant rip from James Cameron's Aliens. It's, oh, there's this little girl that I now had to protect. They even go as far as to put her into a fucking egg that apparently a licker put there that looks almost identical to the cocoon from Aliens. I don't even remember lickers making eggs, which makes it even more of a standout thing, but we've seen that before. And who gives a fuck? Because that little girl is never going to be brought up again in this entire movie franchise. And I could have told you that before I saw Final Chapter, because as soon as they get to the White House, who cares? We never see her again. Just like the little girl in Apocalypse. We never saw her again. They don't care about kids in this movie because they can't kick ass. Now, since I brought up the liquor, let's talk about that a little bit, because one thing that's also been kind of cool, and probably pissed off other people, but kind of cool for me as I've watched these movies, is that every single one of these chapters has introduced some monster, some bioweapon from the video games that's cool to see. We got like that bullshit version of the liquor in the first movie, but they made the liquors better in the second, but we also got Nemesis in the second one. In the third one, we got the Crows, and we got the Tyrant. In the fourth one, we got the Axemen, and we got Wesker. What do we get in this one? Just returning shit. We got zombies, we got Las Plagas zombies. We don't get one Axeman, we get 2 this time. Isn't that cool? We don't just get a liquor, we get a super liquor this time. And that's it. Like nothing new. Give us something, man. Give us something new, something creative, something that's pulled from these video games. It's like, I know you guys have been waiting for this monster. Here it is. You've done it for 4 movies thus far. Why in this one they decided, fuck it, we'll just recycle that stuff? Like, that just shows extreme creative deficit, especially on the part of Paul W.S. Anderson, who literally came back to direct this franchise in 4 and then carried on for the rest. If you didn't have any more life left in you, dude, hand it off to somebody else like you did in 2. And why is Albert Wesker a good guy in this movie? Do we ever get that explanation? Because I'm pretty sure we don't. That's never happened in the video games. That would never happen in the video games. And even if you are going to take extreme liberties and go that direction to where now Albert Wesker actually gives a fuck about humanity and is actually rallying the troops against Umbrella, which would never fucking happen, I don't believe for a fucking second that Alice would ever buy into that. The fact that he comes on the screen is like, I'm a good guy now, and now I'm going to tell you the plot of this movie, and I'm going to give you a route out of this underground bunker, and you must escape, Project Alice. And she's like, okay, cool, sounds good. Didn't this fucking guy nearly kill you twice in the previous movie? Didn't he take all of your powers away, even though you still kicked his ass? Does none of that ring true for you? Didn't he bring all of Umbrella to wipe out all of the survivors at the beginning of this fucking movie, including probably Chris and Claire, who we never get any explanation for what the fuck those characters did after that movie? Does none of that compute with you, Project Alice? Because I don't remember your memory getting wiped. And my final negative is that the action sequences in this movie also don't really do it for me, which is, again, the first time that I have said that in this review series, and I understand if some people could apply that to all the other movies. But here you get the returning slow-mo from Resident Evil Afterlife. You get pretty decent choreography from what you can tell, but they just shoot it and cut it in a way to where it loses all impact. I mean, you could tell that there was training. You could tell that there was choreography there that could have been a cool, fast, tense action sequence, like when she's fighting all of the undead in that hallway, like when they're fighting the two X-Men, even at the end, whenever they're fighting Rain and they're fighting Jill Valentine, but everything is in slow motion, so nothing really has a punch, literally. And again, I fully acknowledge, and I'm even confused myself, how the things that I am so frustrated with in this movie does not frustrate me nearly as much in the previous movies. All I can say is that up to now, they do a tolerable job at balancing a story that they are telling that's completely removed from the video games, while also referencing and bringing winks and nods and characters and monsters from the video games. And they do a moderately entertaining job with that I have guilty pleasure with for the first 4 films. This film is the first one that I watched that genuinely feels from top to bottom, left to right, start to finish, that Paul W.S. Anderson and everybody involved did not give a fuck. They were like, another one? Whatever. They make money. Okay, what characters have we got left? New monsters, fuck that, that costs money. Put them in an underground bunker again, but we'll shoot them in a couple different locations and think of something cool that we can ignore in the next movie. There, we have our movie. So overall, guys, not a fan of Resident Evil Retribution. This is a movie that I could throw on as background noise. Like, it's got some cool visuals, I guess, but overall, it just does nothing for me in the story department, does absolutely nothing for me in the character department. And because they have now shown me that definitively their template is to completely wipe clean whatever they introduced in the previous movie, completely get rid of canon, and then just introduce something that's never going to come to fruition for a movie that comes after this, I got no excitement whatsoever for whatever the next and presumably final chapter of the Resident Evil saga would be. So if you've been a fan of these Resident Evil movies thus far, prepare to lower your expectations for this 5th chapter, because this is the one to me that just loses anything that they had going for it. And since nothing left open from Afterlife gets addressed here and nothing that's introduced in this movie is relevant to the 6th film, gonna recommend that you just outright skip it. So what do you guys think of Resident Evil Retribution? Are you a fan of this one? Is it one of your favorite chapters in this movie franchise? Or are you like me and this was the first time that this just completely shit the bed for you? Or have you hated all of them and this is just more of what you hated about the other films? Let me know down below, guys, and we will talk about it. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you're a Resident Evil fan. We got one more movie to talk about before the new film on Wednesday. And then this weekend, I'm not only going to be doing a spoiler stream talking about the new film, but I will be ranking all 7 of these movies on Saturday. So please hit the subscribe button so you do not miss any of that. There's also a lot of video game content on here. I've done reviews of Resident Evil 7 and 8. I have done a couple different rankings of characters and the video games, so check all that as well. Thank you guys for watching, as always, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.